Greetings! If you have decided to click on this podcast, I assume you're here to learn all about building towers for Juke's Towers of Hell. You know, that one footy tower game on Roblox. If so, you've come to the right place. A little bit about me: I am a proficient level designer for the game, which are called verified builders in the community. I've been building and practicing for a few years at this point, so you could consider me to be quite experienced in this field. In this series, I will be covering the process of developing and designing your tower to be submitted to the game, plus providing advice to efficiently improve your skills over time. If that sounds like your cup of tea, stick around for the journey. Go ahead and sit back, maybe grab a snack, and let's get these tutorials on track. Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of the Instructional Institution, hosted by the insane Innovator himself. Today we'll be going over the tower creation kit and how to prepare it for use. Go ahead and sit back, maybe grab a snack, and let's get this episode on track. First and foremost, I must note one thing before we begin. Since this is a Roblox game, you will, of course, need to know how to use Roblox Studio. This includes knowing how to organize your workspace and knowing the hotkeys to navigate through it and perform actions. However, I can say that you will not need to know how to script or code anything, as it is already done by the kit itself. You will only need to utilize the kit's parts to build your tower. This is one of the nice things about tower creation. Even if you're new to Roblox Studio in general, the kit is very intuitive to use and you'll quickly get a hefty grasp of how it works. You'll also need a Discord account to access the community's Discord server, as it contains numerous resources that will be referenced throughout the series. These resources are incredibly useful and will make creating your tower a much more understandable and enjoyable experience, as well as ensuring your tower is of significantly better quality. You can find the link to the Discord server in the social links of the game's Roblox page. Now, let's talk about importing the kit in and setting it up. Starting off, you'll of course want to create the game for your tower first. Go to the Create page on the Roblox site and click on Create New Experience. When Roblox Studio comes up, you'll be shown some presets for your game. You'll want to click on the classic basement one. And now you have your game. Next step, importing the kit. As you would with importing any model into your Roblox game, go to the toolbox in Roblox Studio and search for JToH Tower Creation Kit. When the search results come up, look for the model called JToH Tower Creation Kit and click on it. Then the kit will be imported. Make sure you import the correct one, as there are several different versions of the kit. The one you want to import is version 5.35. If you cannot find it, I have it linked in the description just in case. The kit is contained in a folder labeled JToH Kit version 5.35 and holds everything that will be used for the tower. However, you'll first need to move some of the things around in order to get everything working. You can delete the thumbnail camera part, as it holds no value towards creating your tower. Next, open the testing stuff folder and place the items inside it into the starter pack directory. Then open the music module and move the folder labeled music to the server script service directory. Finally, open the scripts folder and follow closely. Move the collision groups and damage event scripts to the server script service. Move local part script to starter player scripts. Starter player scripts is located in the starter player directory. Move touch script to starter character scripts. Starter character scripts is also located in the starter player directory. Move the damage event, remote event, the thing that looks like a lightning bolt, to replicated storage. Move Effect GUI to Starter GUI. And that's it. Everything's ready to go and you can begin building your tower. Alright, is that 5 minutes yet? No? I guess we can go over one more thing before we call it a day. The kit is divided into 3 main parts: the client-sided objects folder, the obby folder, and the frame folder. The client-sided objects folder contains all of the moving parts, scripted parts, and everything that you need to make your tower's gameplay creative and unique. This includes spinning parts, kill bricks, buttons, zip lines, balloons, beat blocks, and much more. The obby folder contains only basic parts, which remain still in place and do not have any special properties to them, with a few exceptions being the conveyor and the speed and jump boosters. Lastly, the frame folder contains the parts making up the frame of the tower. Not much else than that. Oh, there's also the spawn location, which is where the player will start out when playing in the tower. Alright, that's 5 minutes. We're done here. That concludes this episode of the show. In this episode, we discuss preparing yourself to become a tower builder and setting up the kit, which includes making a new game, importing the model into Roblox Studio, and moving the scripts. We also briefly touched on the contents of the kit and what they are used for. Thank you for checking in with me, and I hope to see you in the next episode of the series. Until then, stay safe and have fun out there. See ya! Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of the Instructional Institution, hosted by the insane innovator himself. Today we'll be going over the rules of tower building and knowing how to abide by them. Go ahead and sit back, maybe grab a snack, and let's get this episode on track. What are the rules for building a tower, you may ask? I'll gladly tell you. There are a bunch of dumb restrictions that prevent your tower from becoming the best it can be. They are the guidelines that all tower submissions must follow in order to be eligible to be added to the game. The rules are designed to keep your tower in check among every tower that has been submitted or implemented into the game. It can be found by looking at the tower submissions channel in the official community Discord server and checking the pinned messages. In total, there are 22 rules that must be followed in order for your tower to be allowed into the game. This sounds like quite a lot, but it's quite simple really. Most of the rules can be followed without much thought or effort, apart from a few which I'll list and explain right now. One of the two important rules is to refrain from using your own scripted mechanics in your tower unless you are a verified builder. In other words, you can't use stuff that isn't already part of the kit. However, you can make adjustments to the kit's own scripts as long as they don't cause them to behave drastically differently. To avoid using custom client objects, as they're called by the community, you should stick with a version 5.35 kit, which is the one I said to use in the previous episode. The second important rule is the part limit, which sits at 4,000 parts. If you do not know, a part is an individual brick that makes up many different structures that you can create with Roblox Studio. When the Roblox client has to load in thousands of parts, it can cause lag on lower-end devices, so it is necessary to avoid massive part counts. You can use up to, but strictly no more than 4,000 parts in a single tower. I should note that these parts are only included as parts in the obby and frame folders, and not the client-sided objects folder. To keep your tower from exceeding this part limit, it is advisable not to make your tower extremely long or use an excessive amount of decoration, as these are the two main ways that a tower does exceed the limit. However, it is not recommended to have your tower use all 4,000 parts just because it's the limit. It is best practice to use as few parts as possible in order to make your tower as optimized as possible. Now, if you are thinking about how you're supposed to count the amount of parts in your tower, it can be done by utilizing a part counter plugin. I'll explain what that is in just a moment. Anyways, that's basically the rules summarized for you, but you can look through them yourself to make sure you're following them all. Also, if you're making a tower just for fun and not submitting it to the developers, you don't need to follow any of these rules. You can just go wild, really. Except for Rule 21. That one's about following the Roblox TOS, and you probably don't want to get your account screwed over. But the rules aren't only what you're going to discuss today, for we must also touch on Roblox Studio's plugins, specifically ones used by the tower building community. Spoiler alert, they're super useful. You can find the plugins in the Discord server in the tower development channel, where they are listed in the channel's topic. These plugins include 1. A part counter, which as we said before, is a tool to find the number of parts in your tower. 2. Draw, a plugin designed to create ropes in Roblox Studio. This is used to create the tight ropes that you see in many towers. 3. A surface tool, which allows you to change the surface of parts to include studs or not. 4. Reclass, a plugin that allows you to change any part into a different class. For example, you can turn a brick into a truss, wedge, or corner wedge, or vice versa. There are also several other plugins and resources available in the channel's pinned messages, all of which are very helpful for saving time and more efficient building. Go take a look and feel free to pick out any that you like. Lastly, I want to mention another channel in the Discord server that can help you out, called Building Tutorials. The channel contains several written guides regarding how certain features work and gives advice about Roblox Studio and the building constraints it has. Basically, it gives some insight as to how all the magic seems to happen in towers built by professional builders. Obviously, these tutorials won't instantly make you a master of tower building, but it is a very helpful step in the right direction, I'll give you that. That concludes this episode of the show. Today we went over the rules of creating towers for the game, specifically the two main important rules. Then we discussed several resources that you could use while creating your tower, such as plugins and the Discord server. Thank you for checking in with me, and I hope to see you in the next episode of the series. Until then, stay safe and have fun out there. See ya! Hey everyone, welcome to the third episode of the Instructional Institution, hosted by the insane innovator himself. Today we'll be discussing how to develop ideas and how to improve your creativity to do so. Go ahead and sit back, maybe grab a snack, and let's get this episode on track. Obviously, having ideas is a requirement in order to form your tower and determine the content it will hold. Therefore, it is necessary to come up with numerous while working on your tower, sometimes even before you begin work on it. So, what are some good methods of coming up with said ideas for your tower? Considering this is a tutorial series, you are likely a beginner builder, possibly creating just your first tower right now. This makes coming up with ideas significantly harder, as you aren't yet familiar with the kit and don't know how to use it. But that's okay. All builders start out as amateurs without any experience, but expand their skills as they create more and more. Over time, as long as you keep building, it will become quite easy to come up with new ideas due to the knowledge you have gained, allowing you to do more creative things with the kit. Simply put, your talent will grow the more you experiment and build with a kit, as you would with any other hobby. So, when making your first few towers, it is usually a good idea to start simply with less thought about your tower's quality and more about experimenting with the kit and learning how different parts of it work. On the other hand, it is ill-advised to be ambitious with just your first tower, as your underdeveloped skills will cause you to get easily lost and frustrated. Not to mention that if your tower doesn't do very well, which most first towers do not, all the effort that you put into it will have been for naught. Once you get the hang of things and reach a point that you are comfortable with, then you are ready to begin a larger scale and higher stakes project. Just keep practicing and experimenting and your talent will quickly grow. But what if you already have made some towers and yet still struggle to find any creative ways to use the kit? Do not worry, because I have some good methods that you can use to form ideas more easily. My first method is to think about how you can combine two different parts of the kit to create a new and unique mechanic. For example, there's a tower in the game that combines ladders with pushing platforms, forming a pushing platform ladder. An exquisite thing if you ask me. You can combine almost any two things from the kit together if you put enough time thinking about how to pull it off. If you're feeling ambitious, you could even combine 3 or more at once, but that would probably be too advanced for a beginner like you to try out. Still, if you get the hang of the kit, you can most certainly do it. The second method is to take inspiration from the ideas of other towers, or from different media altogether. It's quite popular in the community and is done by a lot of builders of all skill levels, and for good reason. It allows you to do something creative without requiring what you're doing is 100% original. How does inspiration work, essentially? It's when you see something interesting to you and think to yourself, hey, I could put my own spin on this. When looking for inspiration, it is a good idea to play other towers, or just some game you might want to play at the time. If something catches your attention during your session, try thinking about how you could use that in your own way to make it your own. It's quite an enjoyable method, since you can take time off from building, yet still make progress in the developing process. The third and last method I want to talk about is expanding on ideas you have already established in your tower. If you do something creative with the kit and you're proud of it, why not use it again later? Just make sure you add something new to it, otherwise it'll just be rather boring seeing the same thing again. It's quite similar to taking inspiration, only this time you're taking your own ideas and putting a twist on them. Expanding on ideas is also something that many players and curators seem to enjoy, so go ahead and do it whenever you can. To finish this episode, I just want to remind you that Discord server is an amazing resource when it comes to receiving help for your towers, whether you simply want to learn how to make a spinning platform spin faster, or want to learn how to make something crazy like anti-gravity. Just hop into the tower development channel and ask the folks there about whatever you might be confused about or want to know more about. It is important to remember that this is a public channel with several people already talking. So if you say something that is too advanced for them to quickly state the answer to, you might not get a thorough answer. That concludes this episode of the show. This time, we went over the importance of learning how to use the tower creation kit, along with discussing a few methods that builders like myself can conjure up ideas for their towers. I also touched on the Discord community, who you can chat with to find answers to questions you may have. Thank you for checking in with me, and I hope to see you in the next episode of the series. Until then, stay safe and have fun out there. See ya! Hey everyone, welcome to the 4th episode of the Instructional Institution, hosted by the insane Innovator himself. Today I will be providing you with some recommendations to stay motivated, sharpen your skills, and accelerate your progress towards becoming a talented builder. Go ahead and sit back, maybe grab a snack, and let's get this episode on track. Among the community's beginner builders, I noticed that many can get easily demotivated, whether it's because they are intimidated by the learning curve of building, because their towers are of lesser quality and do not have very positive reception, or because of another reason. In this episode, I seek to teach you how to maintain motivation and continue expanding upon your skills, using my own experiences as reference. The first thing I want to mention and emphasize is that you should really refrain from worrying about your tower's quality to an extreme point. This includes thoughts regarding what others will think of your tower, and especially comparing your tower to the towers made by other builders. If you create a tower for the sole purpose of it being memorable rather than building it because you enjoy it, you will find that you won't want to work on the tower due to a fear that you won't do as good as the job that you want. It will ultimately lead you to scrapping the tower altogether because you'll view your tower as not good enough and move on to another project you'll likely abandon as well. Even if you do manage to finish the tower, it will likely be unenjoyable for the player due to an overwhelming emphasis on creativity, which often ruins the flow of gameplay. Take it from me, you don't want to go down this path. If you do find yourself falling into this hole, I recommend getting someone that you know, or find any person to view your tower and give their opinions on it. Although it may not be 100% positive, it will give you an outside view of your tower's quality, and it will motivate you to continue working and become better at your act. Sometimes just a comment from someone else can point you in the right direction when you find yourself lost in your own thoughts and concerns. Now, let's talk about how you can learn and grow as a builder. Obviously, you're guaranteed to become better over time by just building, but there are some things you can do to speed up your progression towards professionalism. One thing I would recommend doing is building different towers while focusing on a specific area for each one. For example, You can make a tower where gameplay is the base focus. Then a tower where you've practiced working with decoration, and so on. For the gameplay tower, you might try to use or expand upon unique jumps seen in other successful towers. For the decoration tower, you can experiment with the different shapes of the kit, create attractive structures, and even practice utilizing colors well. Going through this process can expand your knowledge of how to use certain things, and more importantly, how not to use them. Chances are, you'll come across some difficulties from time to time, and while they may be hard to fix, you'll learn where you went wrong and how to avoid it in the future. Another useful tip I have for you is to learn how to use Roblox Studio's different types of constraints and body movers. This includes weld constraints, no collision constraints, rope constraints, prismatic constraints, and numerous more. Many towers use these tools to create incredibly creative obstacles that you wouldn't expect to be possible. For example, some towers utilize a spinning platform attached by a rod constraint to a part bound by a prismatic constraint, the result being a piston that moves back and forth as the spinning platform continually rotates. Ooh, that's a mouthful. Taking the time to learn how each of them work and coming up with ways to use them together can be a monumental task, but following through with it can yield some very worthwhile results. It'll definitely be a very valuable fruit for your labor if you choose to do so. Lastly, I want to speak about some gripes I have with some of the towers I see and how you can avoid them. One of these issues I have is cramped gameplay, which is problematic for two reasons. The first being that it leaves little room for your camera to move around. The second being that it's very awkward to go through, as the player can easily bump into something and lose their momentum. Intentional or not, it artificially increases the difficulty of the tower in an irritating and unfair way. You can avoid having cramped gameplay by using larger parts that are farther away from each other, giving the player room to move their camera freely. The second thing I don't like in towers is having to wait for a moving part. Take, for example, the elevator and citadel of laptop splitting. This grievance applies to any section in a tower that disengages the player and forces them to wait for the tower to move itself into the correct formation. This is an issue because it disrupts any immersion the player might have had so far, not to mention that it's very inconvenient for speedrunners. There isn't much of a solution to this, other than to use more instantaneous transitions in place of ones that require waiting. I will say that you do not need to completely abstain from these types of gameplay, but it is certain that an overabundance of it will cause a tower to become highly annoying to play through. That concludes this episode of the show. In this episode, I explained what can cause demotivation in builders and described how to counteract it. I then explained how you can better your talents and hasten your progress to become a better proficient builder. Thank you for checking in with me, and I hope to see you in the next episode of the series. Until then, stay safe. Hey everyone, welcome to the 5th episode of the Instructional Institution, hosted by the insane Innovator himself. Today we'll be going over how you can refine your tower to be in its optimal condition. Go ahead and sit back, maybe grab a snack, and let's get this episode on track. After you finish your tower, the next step is to polish your tower and iron out any flaws that it may have, although polishing can also be done before the tower is finished if you wish to do so. Polishing your tower can include improving gameplay, adding decoration, implementing new ideas, basically anything that can make your tower more pleasant for the player. That's the main goal while creating a tower, after all. The main way to polish your tower is to play through it yourself and analyze it, taking note of sections that may be of concern and need to be adjusted. If you spot a jump that is abnormally difficult or feels awkward to go through, change it. Try to account how the player would experience the tower through their playthrough. Remember, the player does not know the ins and outs of the tower like you do, which is a very important thing to note. You should also be aware that when a tower is added to the game, players are going to need to beat it from the start without any checkpoints. Thus, I recommend avoiding reliance on the testing tools and instead try to beat the tower yourself without these tools. You may find that the tower is way harder than you intended. Oh, I have forgotten about one thing I really should have mentioned by now. If you're a beginner builder, you may not yet know about the term Z-fighting, which is a visual flaw that can occur sometimes in towers. It has a bit of a flickering look and appears very unappealing in many cases. It occurs when the surfaces of two different parts overlap each other, causing them to essentially fight over which surface is seen. To circumvent this, you'll need to slightly adjust one of the surfaces so they are no longer directly overlapping. The typical method for doing this is to modify the part's size using the Properties menu and change the size to be slightly greater or lesser. For example, if the part is currently 2 studs tall, you would change it to be either 2.01 studs or 1.99 studs. That way, the Z-fighting is gone without making any noticeable change to the part's size. If you want to scout your tower out for any Z-fighting, it is recommended to play on the lowest graphics quality possible, as it can see Z-fighting where higher graphics qualities do not. Now, it is often not enough to judge the tower by yourself, as reviews can often be too positive or too negative in the perception of the playing community. In the Discord server, there's a channel called Tower Feedback, where builders can post a link to their towers for others to play and review. It is a very helpful channel and can radically boost your tower's quality if you get enough opinions and adjust your tower accordingly. To get a good view as to what kinds of things should be done in towers, I've interviewed a few people to get some answers regarding a few questions about community towers. Alright, so I come from the future and unfortunately I didn't have anyone who was willing to partake in an interview. Woe is me. So, I'm gonna have to improvise. I'm just gonna list a bunch of tips that you can use while designing your tower for the rest of the episode. That's fine with you, right? If not, I can't do anything to help that. I'm real sorry. Okay. Tip number 1. Don't use cramped gameplay. I already said in the last episode, and I'm saying it again because I really don't like cramped gameplay. It doesn't make your tower any better and just slow things down to a crawl. Not to mention, the player can easily hit their head on something and get completely screwed over. Tip number 2. Short towers are often more fun. When a tower is unnecessarily long and has lots and lots of obstacles to go through, the player has to go through all of that every time they fall. Most of the time, redoing gameplay in a tower can be arduous for the player, even if the tower is on the easier and more enjoyable side of things. Therefore, it is a good idea to make a tower shorter so the player has less to get past to return to where they were. You can also use buttons to add shortcuts so that the tower becomes shorter as the player progresses through it. Tip number 3. Some builders like to incorporate a story into their towers, but I only recommend doing so if it is simple and doesn't try to separate itself from the actual game. It is important to remember that community towers are built for the game, and therefore should act like a tower in the game, rather than a completely different series that makes the player feel like they're playing an entirely different game. Duke's Towers of Hell already had its own story, and shouldn't have tons of random side stories because the community towers just felt like it. The things that I put up with. That concludes this episode of the show. This time we established what it means to polish your tower and described examples of how it is done. We then discussed how to get feedback on your tower and even had an interview to see what players want to see in towers. Except that didn't happen, and I just regurgitated the same advice again to compensate. Anyways, thank you for taking with me, and I hope to see you in the last episode of the series. Yeah, we're almost done. Until then, stay safe and have fun out there. See ya! Hey everyone, welcome to the 6th and final episode of the Instructional Institution, hosted by the insane Innovator himself. Today we will be submitting your tower that you've been working on over the course of this series. Go ahead and sit back, maybe grab a snack, and let's get this episode on track. So, we've got our feedback on the tower, we've polished and improved as much as possible, everything has been set up and ready to go. Cool. Now we can finally submit the tower. But before doing so, I want to tell you a few things about the submission process first. Just bear with me for a few minutes here. Look, it's only a few minutes, right? I don't want to be here as much as you don't want to be here. Let's just get this done and maybe we can go home. Okay? Okay? Alright. So, one thing you might want to consider when you submit your tower is to include a model for the tower. Models are assets Roblox Studio users can insert into their own games, much like how you did when putting the tower creation kit into your game. I personally find doing this to be quite a beneficial thing for a few reasons. One is that this lets others create new and creative versions of your tower, such as a buff version, a nerf version, or just have an interesting and new gimmick to it. It allows the innovation of others to flourish, using your creation and their own imagination to make a fresh and brilliant new tower from it. Another thing that tower models are rather nice for is that they can use to see what the inside of your tower and how all of its gears and gizmos come together and function. Inexperienced builders can take a look at this and learn a thing or two about how to make the complex contraptions that may be found within your tower. Some builders do not like to give the model to the public for the reason that the tower can be stolen. But let's step back and talk about what this really is. When a tower is, quote, stolen, all that really happened is that someone took the model of the tower and placed it into their own fan game of Juke's Towers of Hell, while usually crediting the original creator as well. These fan games are highly irrelevant and don't get much, if any, traction from many Roblox players, so there isn't much of a reason to get agitated about an often young developer who just wants to make a fan game for fun. Besides, even if a builder doesn't give a model, other builders, including myself, will, which the fan game creators can use instead of it, and making it pointless not to give the model. There are also just some plain downsides to not giving the model, as others might ask for you for it often, and it generally just makes you look stingy. Now, if you do want to give the model of your tower, I'll explain the process of creating a tower model. First, go to Roblox Studio's Explorer. You want to make sure every part of the tower is put into the main folder, including the music zones as well. Once everything is secure, right-click on the main folder to open the drop-down menu and select Save to Roblox, which will open the menu for publishing a model to Roblox. It's quite simple to set it up. All you need to do is set the model's name to the name of the tower if it isn't already that, and then toggle on the option labeled Allow Copying. This basically puts the model on sale so people can put it into their game. Then just click Submit and your model is good to go. That just about wraps up everything we need to talk about. Now we can submit the tower. Just head to the Tower Submissions channel in the Discord server and look at the pinned messages for the templates saying for submitting your tower, which includes giving a link to your tower's game, saying what difficulty it is, affirming the part count, and optionally adding a link to the tower's model. Use the template, post your submission, and your job is done. There's nothing more for you to do. Well, almost. After your tower has been submitted, a curator will review it at some time after you have submitted it, ranging from a day to several days. Just be patient and you'll have your review sooner or later. All reviews are posted in the Curator Reviews channel, which you will be notified for when your tower is reviewed. The review consists of a paragraph listing the curator's thoughts and criticisms they have for the tower, with a verdict being added as well. A check mark indicates that the tower has been approved, while an X means that the tower has been denied. If it has been approved, the tower will be added to the Tower Lightlist channel, where the tower will be able to select it for the game from there. The curator will also say what they believe is the tower's difficulty, which can be helpful in determining if your tower is as hard as you want it to be. Regardless of the verdict, you will want to focus on the review your tower has received and make more changes to the tower based on the criticisms from the curator. This is preparing it for a re-review, in which you can submit your tower again for it to be rated in a higher quality state. You have 3 reviews per tower, being the main submission along with 2 re-reviews, so make sure the changes you make are of significant value and add an appreciable amount of craftsmanship to it. Note that one of the rules for submitting your tower states that you must wait at least a week between a review and a resubmission, so make sure to take your time. Well, I believe that does it for this series. I do not have anything else to say, so I believe I'll be taking my leave now. Oh, right. I gotta recap what we talked about in this episode. Today we went over the process of submitting your tower, which includes the option of creating a model for it. I discussed the benefits and downsides of including a tower's model in your submission, and explained how to create a model if you choose to do so. I then explained how you submit your tower and that a creator will review your tower once it has been submitted. What a journey this has been. From setting it up to submitting it, I've explained the entire process of building your tower and making it the best it can be. It has also lasted less than 40 minutes, which is ironic but also for the best. A short and concise tutorial is better than a lengthy and boring tutorial, that's for sure. I'm tired. I'm gonna head out. Stay safe, have fun, see ya, yada yada yada. Let me out of here.